Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nick, your host of On the Scene with Martini. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, you are the scene. Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick, On the Scene with Martini. Today I'm here with Kerry from Deafheaven. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. I know you're on tour right now. You guys said like this is the start of your second month, right, of tour, pretty much.
Yeah. We finished this second US tour up and then we're home for about 2 weeks. Then we do Dia de los Deftones and then Hypnosis in Mexico, then go to Europe again. So yeah.
That's awesome. This is your first major tour since the new album, right? Lonely People.
It's the second.
Second?
We did we did a full US in the spring and then we did like a European fest run thing in the summer and then went to Asia for a few days and then started this one.
That's awesome.
So second US, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I kind of want to get into, I know you and George have known each other a good while. I kind of want to get into
Mhm.
like your musical career, how you started, and then like the formation of the band itself.
Sure.
So, like when you first started, like when did you first start your first artist that you really fell in love with or
The first artist I really fell in love with would have been uh Queen, I guess.
Mhm.
As a kid, it was the first CD I bought. Um, yeah. I don't even remember when, or I guess probably would have been the before that. Probably is the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. That was probably like five or something when I first heard like Satisfaction, and that would have probably been the first artist I actually like fell in love with. As an adult, like when I became kind of having my own taste,
Mhm.
things that weren't just at my dad's house, probably would have been like a three-way tie between like the Misfits, AFI, and like at the drive-in, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like was that when when did you first start playing guitar then?
I started playing guitar when I was 11, I think. Yeah, my dad had an acoustic and he bought a second one and gave me the first one. So yeah, I started at 11 and then Christmas in seventh grade, I would also gotten really into animation, like stop motion animation and stuff like that on my friend's camcorder. Um, and I'd asked for a camcorder or like an electric guitar, and the electric guitar was cheaper, so they gave me that.
Fair
So that
enough.
would have been 13, yeah.
So when was your first band then? Was Death Heaven your first band or?
No, my first band, I had about 1.5 million bands before that. My first band was literally called like Offensive Material, I think, when I was like 13. And it was just a garagey thing with my friend Phil and my friend Rob. We were in seventh grade. We would just, or no, yeah, seventh grade. Yeah. And I would just like seventh, eighth grade, I would just go over there. No, seventh grade and like spend the night at Rob's house. He had a 4-track recorder and we would make demos of stuff that kind of sounded like Nirvana with like Red Hot Chili Peppers in it, I think. Something like that. Yeah.
Could you kind of just like take us on then of how you and George created Death Heaven in general? I know you guys kind of started out as a two-piece, right? Uh,
Yeah. So yeah, fast forwarding from that era, essentially like from like my first band would have been like I just kind of kept playing in bands and starting bands, and none of them ever did anything. Got into punk, um, and like liked metal a little bit, but only really like Slayer and like early Metallica, but was like solidly like a punk, like hard, like 80s hardcore guy. Um, And George had sort of like was always like a metal guy. And essentially like we met, he transferred to my high school halfway through the year when I was a freshman in high school, and he had a Slayer shirt. Like I've told the story so many times, and I feel like it changes. Like he had some shirt of a metal band that I thought was cool, which means it was like Slayer or yeah, it must have been Slayer. And I had like a Dead Kennedys shirt on, and he liked that because Slayer had covered Dead Kennedys. And so we were just sort of talking about that, and it was just on from there. We both like still did a bunch of different bands and stuff like that. And then eventually we had a band called Rise of Caligula that we essentially learned um like all of the things not to do in a band essentially in this band. Like it was a local band. It was in our small town in Modesto, and there was like kind of slim pickings on people in the mid aughts that were like into the things we were into. So you sort of had to just start a band with like whoever had stuff and could play, which was not easy to find, especially for two guys that were as broke as we were. So yeah, we were in a band with guys that liked deathcore and guys that liked Rotten Sound, and we were really into like Dark Throne, and I was really into like this Pig Destroyer record and Spaz, and we all liked the second Animosity record. So it was this big like soup of stuff, and there was no like clear leader or clear direction. We just kind of like made this soup, and just grinded, and couldn't get anybody to really pay attention. Locally, we had some fans, but it was like nothing really going. And I had been in a few post-rock bands that also didn't do anything. And so essentially, like we were doing, he moved to San Francisco, and I was in like a really gnarly living situation. And he kind of came and was like, "Hey, just get a ride up here, and we'll figure it out. You could be my roommate, and then you just have like a month to find a job." So I did that, figured it out. We both got to San Francisco. We were both living in this room, sharing this room, and our rent was like 250 each a month, which is crazy.
That's nice.
And this, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a $250 a month type room for sure. But in this big house in on Haight Street in San Francisco, and this is like 2010, and we yeah, at that point we were just listening to so much black metal. And just devouring it. This is the blogspot era. Both of us are too. I had lived too chaotic a life to have like records essentially. Like I came there with like my bike and the clothes I had in a satchel and my dad's acoustic guitar, and that was it. And he had a laptop from as a gift from his dad, and we would just be on blogspots and Last FM and all that kind of stuff, just devouring. Yeah, just like weird Ukrainian black metal bands and finding all of this weird cool stuff and then downloading it and putting it on like our iPods because neither of us could afford iPhones at this point. And essentially was splitting the time between listening to that and then yeah, listening to like Loop, Slow Dive, Chapter House, My Bloody Valentine, this great band from the Bay Area called Weekend, A Place to Bury Strangers, like all of these kind of bands that we all know and love today. Um, And essentially, our band was dissolving, and I was writing this stuff, and he was like, "Why don't we just start this second band? Why don't we just start this other band?" And I was like, "Oh, that'll be kind of fucked up. Like, what about the guys in Modesto?" And that band like blew up essentially a week later. And so we did, and I made some garage band demos. I wrote these songs that were kind of like there's an Alcest side project called Amisours. I never say it right. That was kind of like all sets with more New Order influence, and we were listening to a lot of Lantlos and listening to a lot of Weakling and listening to this band Westering and yeah, a whole bunch of atmospheric black metal, whole lot of second wave bands and bands influenced by them, and just kind of like combined all of these things. And our goal was to just be like the West Coast version of Amisours, like all of us we everyone we knew liked these bands. All of our friends from Modesto, all of our friends from whatever. So we're like, oh, we'll just do like a band that's like that, but over here. Um, and kind of to our surprise, it just sort of like took off. Like we realized that like a lot of people didn't know about this stuff. Uh, and so we were like, oh, that's crazy. And so we had sort of accidentally like made this palatable version of black metal that a lot of people uh, were unaware of, or at least in the circles that it eventually got to, were unaware of. So, yeah, that was kind of like the journey essentially. And then we just, after that, it was just, we just realized like that's how a band should be. It should not be like an uphill fight 24/7. It was always a little bit of an uphill fight, but
Yeah.
like you shouldn't be having to like, yeah, people should just like your band or they don't. It's like one of the things, one of those things.
So when you first started then, your first demo, was that you're still using just an acoustic guitar? You weren't electric yet, or were you doing a little bit of both?
No, well, the demos I made for the actual release demo, the first Deafheaven actual release, was written on acoustic guitar
Hmm.
with GarageBand. My friend, there was like 12 kids living at this spot, and they were all like going to Academy of Art or like UCSF or something like that. So they all had like MacBooks, and so I just borrow their MacBook and make a really shitty GarageBand demo, and then yeah, so it was written on acoustic guitar, and then when we got to Jack's, obviously we used like he has amps and guitars and stuff there, but a lot of the leads were kind of just freestyled because I had only like written one part of them.
Yeah.
So so yeah, that's kind of how that came out.
Did you find it like difficult writing it on an acoustic guitar? I mean, obviously, like it's similar in terms of like structure, but did you find it like difficult writing that kind of music on an acoustic guitar?
No, these days I do. Um, yeah, these days I definitely prefer to like have like an amp and kind of take that energy from it.
Hmm.
Um, it's definitely more inspiring that way when you can like get a hold of something and like feel it in real time. But back then, no, I did not. I did not find it difficult. I just had all these riffs and didn't know what to do with them. And yeah, so I was just like, okay, yeah, well, this goes together, this goes together, this goes together, this goes together. What if this was a blast, and then this should be this double kick part, and this should be, yeah. So it just kind of, yeah, naturally. I guess I had the imagination back then.
One thing that's like I feel like commonly debated, and I brought this up with a past podcast person that I had on, was just like all the different subgenres of metal. You
hmm
guys kind of categorize yourself as black metal.
hmm
What's your like your opinion on all the different categorizations and like how do you view that at, like as a sense of like obviously it's the metal community, like there's the hardcore community, there's so many different genres of hardcore. For metal, how do you view like all the different subgenres of metal and like the classifications of them?
Like, how do I view them, or how do I view the concept, you
The
mean,
concept,
of it?
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, they're very helpful.
Hmm.
Because if I'm talking to you and I say I like metal, like it could mean anything from, yeah, like the sketchiest war metal band you've ever heard in your life that sounds like a cacophonous, nasty, crazy stuff to like Sleep Token. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there is a point where it gets ridiculous for sure. Um, as somebody that I feel like there's a big misconception with our band that like we kind of like got into black metal like ironically or that we don't like black metal. Like we deeply love the music. That's why we've put it into our band for so long. And we're nerds about it. Um so like, you know, that being said, yeah, like there's a like if you really dig in, there is a difference between like black and death metal and black death, or there's a difference between black death and like war metal. There's a difference between war metal and war noise. There's a difference between Yeah, like or with countries, you can tell if a band is from Finland, you can tell if a band is from Poland, you can tell if a band is like Slavic or from Ukraine or Russia or like there's certain scenes and certain ultra nerdy, gritty things you can get into. I don't know if that's super helpful. That's more just people being nerdy for the sake of nerdy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I view the overall classifications of different sounding bands as helpful. I don't know where those lines. I think they're kind of blurry and messy in general, like as a almost purposefully. I think that's a good thing. I also kind of don't view us as a black metal band. I view us kind of as like a black metal influenced band, but that's the nerd in me being like, well, technically it's not black metal because it doesn't have, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, I hope that answers the question.
No, I get what you're saying. Did you find it hard for people? Obviously, like you just named all those countries, and metal in general is very popular in European countries compared to us, I would say. Did you find it hard to get Death Heaven's music out with your kind of sound? Or like to get the appreciation from the American people as well?
Yes and no. I mean we were it happened really fast with us. Like we were signed within by the time we played our 10th show, and that was 6 months after our demo came out. Which was crazy because again we'd done all the stuff in other bands that no one had ever gave a close to a fuck about.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there was a little bit of like it was hard to get people into our band who like I want to say almost like we wanted them to be into it. So like early on, especially around before and during Sunbather era, like the bands that we were really into, like the black metal bands that we all really liked, or the death metal bands that we really liked, for sure did not like us, and for sure were not into us. And so that was kind of like, oh man, well, whatever. Or we would party with people and they would be cool, and then they'd find out like, oh, that's this guy. And George has a really funny story about a guy being like, dude, your band fucking sucks. Like to his face after they've been hanging out and having fun for like a couple hours. Um, So that was part of it. That doesn't exist as much in Europe, or it didn't when we first went over there. When we first went over to Europe, there was people that were in like Converge shirts and stuff, which is kind of to me like your generic, like that guy probably likes Deafheaven
Hmm.
type uniform. But there was also guys in like Nictalgia shirts with like scarification on their arms and like super long hair, like that were into Life Lover and like really like this whole other subgenre of black metal that and we were like, oh, whoa, those are like real guys. But to us, to them, we were the same thing as that. And there's no in Europe they divide things less or like you'll see a guy who just looks like your grandpa in like a crispy brand new like AC/DC shirt, but he's watching yeah, like Black Curse or something, and just to him, it's just like, yeah, this is good, so I like it. There's not a whole lot of like what does this mean for me to be a guy who likes this? As there's not as much of that over there as there is over here. So long-winded answer, but yes, but maybe not in the way you would think.
I gotcha.
Mhm.
You guys said that you got signed 10 shows in. What was it
Mhm.
like kind of doing all of those bands? Like what was did they just approach you after a show or was it an email or
No, we had the demo up on Bandcamp. This is when Bandcamp was really new, and we didn't know how to turn like the spam off or something, or like it would just tell us if somebody bought the stuff and how
Mhm.
much they bought. We put it up for pay what you want, and people would buy like for real amounts of money. Um, and so we saw Trey McCarthy at Death Wish Records has bought your album. We were like, oh shit, like that's the other guy from Death Wish. And then Jake bought it, and when Jake bought it, we were like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Um, the other thing you have to understand is there was no photos of us at this time
Okay.
anywhere, so nobody knew. There's no member list. There's no nothing. It was just like the old, like the hand cover of the demo. and just four songs and it said San Francisco and that's it. Nobody knew what we looked like, anything. And the reason for that was essentially to trick our friends into like saying they liked our band, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the way that happened with Trey was that they had just signed Touche. We were friends of, or we were fans of Touche Amore. They played somewhere, and our bass player left a cassette of the demo at their merch table. And I remember they had seen, and nobody could figure out who we were. And then our cassette popped up, and they're like, "Who the fuck is this band? Like, where do they come from?" And then Trey had been talking to George, and a little bit or something like that. I forget how it happened. But essentially, yeah, essentially what happened is our a good friend Max Montez, he booked shows and he booked the first Nails show in San Francisco on Unsilent Death. And it was a show that like everybody was trying to get on. We had played a couple shows and we were trying to get on it. And he put us on as one of four. And Trey asked Todd to watch us and say like ask like are they good live and do they seem like normal guys? And the word I got was that Todd did told Trey yes to both, and then yeah, and then yeah, and then essentially after that like signed the deal with them, and yeah, that was it.
Was that Nail show your first major show then?
No, we had done some other ones. The ones of note that I remember was we opened for Marduk at the Parkside. Um, And then what else had we done? We had done some shows with Early Graves. That's kind of it. Like we did, there's like nine shows before that, and they were
Mhm.
like all not really things you could remember, but
Yeah.
just local shows or whatever. And then yeah, the Nails one and I remember the Marduk one really well.
Could you kind of take us through, like, obviously you were saying earlier too about how like you've been on tour like this whole year essentially,
Hmm.
kind of how you had like your first tour compared to where you guys are now, just with like traveling and setting up, being comfortable, etc.
Hmm. Well, the first tour we ever did, it was in our old band in like 2007, me and George. And that was the most fun I'd ever had in my life and was also like utterly miserable. We were in a van that like didn't have enough seats, so it was four or five of us in essentially this like beat up old van that didn't have AC. It was really hot, and we had to like sit in the back, and no one had money. We were spanging for gas, like at shows. The shows were like barely happening.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of like you almost shouldn't really be touring at that point. The first Deafheaven tour that we ever did was the first tour I was like, oh, this is what touring is supposed to be like. Yeah, and we were just in a van, all the gear in the back, some merch in the back. And yeah, the five of us, our friend Sydney came on a few of them, our friend Rodney came on a few of them. Um, We just went all the way up to Seattle and then down to San Diego. Maybe we went to Arizona. I can't fully remember. And yeah, it was fine. It was like all the shows had like 100 plus people at them. They were doing good. Like for us, that's what's crazy to be in Seattle and like the show is actually like going to be a fun show. Um, we stayed mostly at people's houses, but also like we did get a few hotels that we all shared at the time, which was a super luxury. So yeah, that was kind of what it was first like. I mean, it's was the most fun I'd ever had. I was like, all I wanted to do was be on tour and go somewhere weird and like play fun shows and party and talk to people and all that kind of stuff. These days it's like obviously vastly, you would hope it would be vastly different. Yeah, these days it's kind of like we're not quite a band that is like comfortably like a bus band. We've done buses before. We've like shared buses with people, and we can do that. But solely, like by ourselves, if we do a bus, it's like a little bit too much money for us to be comfortable with. So we usually have like some type of sleeper thing or like something with bunks on it so you can drive overnight. But it isn't a bus. So it's
Mhm.
usually like a bandwagon or a Yoda coach in the US and then some type of mini bus, mini sprinter thing that you have a driver on. It's not like super huge, but we've got like a crew. We've got these days you have to have a media person no matter what, which is new to us. So we've got media, we've got merch, we've got a tour manager. Tour manager usually does sound, and then we have a tech. So it's the five of us, a driver, and then four crew. Um, and yeah, these days the usual day is like I wake up, try and drink as much water as I can when I wake up. Maybe drink a protein shake or something, and then either go to the gym or go to the gym or go to get breakfast. I usually have till like 2 or 3 on a headline day before I need to be back at the venue before they're ready for us to sound check. So I just go do that, come back, hang with the other bands, play the show. Yeah, then like sound check, whatever, and then yeah, try and or maybe after sound check go to the gym. It's honestly like kind of boring. So then
Yeah.
it's usually just like gym, food, um,
Sound check play.
sound check, play, hanging with other bands, calling a girlfriend at some point. And then we play on this tour. Our tour manager is buying pizza every single night, which is crazy. But by the end of the tour, it's like every night, like having two slices of pizza. It's crazy. Compared to how it used to be, it's like the most tame thing in the world. But yeah, it's yeah, so we just do that and then I'm back in the bunk. I take a shower, get back in the bunk, say goodnight to everybody, watch weird YouTube videos on black metal stuff or like production or whatever, and then yeah, go to sleep. And that's it.
How did like you was there like a moment for Death Heaven where you were like you're saying like you were in a ton of bands and at that
Mhm.
point I assumed like you're in like your like early 20s or so. Was there a moment where you were like if this doesn't work out like I have to do something else or was music kind of always set for you?
Yeah, we started Deafheaven when I was 22. And then pretty regularly, or pretty immediately, it was clear to us that yeah, pretty immediately it was like, whoa, this is doing something. We should see what this is gonna do. When we started it, the plan was to play house shows, play Gilman, and like maybe go to Europe like one time if like that would be crazy. There was not like some huge grand plan. I was in school, George was in school. I was planning to be a high school history teacher in San Francisco. I was just going to live in San Francisco, teach history, do music stuff, and party essentially. But yeah, so when Deaf Heaven started happening, I was just like, oh, I'll just do this. And I just need to do whatever I need to do to make this happen. In retrospect, it's kind of scary because I did not know like how I would feel about that at 37. Um, if like it hadn't happened. So like yeah, there was never there was a plan B kind of barely like this, oh, I'll be a high school history teacher. But like the real thing we wanted to do was the band. So like it would have just I don't know I don't know what would have happened. I mean inevitably if like nothing if it had been another band that was like no one gave a fuck about, would have just been like, all right, cool, and then just gone to school and done the regular thing. But thankfully people did care. So yeah.
You and George have been writing a long time together. Did you find it when you first started, you were saying too about how like there was like a kind of a genre soup. Did you find it
Mhm.
difficult to write or to find a direction where you guys want it to be or like sorry, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. Like the best Did you find it difficult in the beginning to set on a genre or set on a certain sound that you and George wanted to cater to?
No, not with this band. The very end, the last song of the last record our old band did, um, was essentially the first Deafheaven song called Calendar Year. And it essentially just sounds like mono mixed with like some envy mixed with like kind of like Knock Misty Wolves in the Throne Room type riffing in there, like maybe dissection or something. So I didn't write a lot of stuff in that other band. I just played bass. And I've never been a bass player. I was always a guitar player. I just wanted to be in a band. Um, so with this, so when we started this, I was like, yeah, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to make this exact thing. And he wanted to too, and it was cool. There wasn't a ton of people doing it like at the time in our area. So yeah, it was very, very quickly like there was some intent and purpose, and we're going to go this way. And we were kind of like smarting from all of the pain of learning the hard lessons from the band, that band, like, here's how you don't do everything. And so we were very like, let's be clear, this is how it's going to go. I'm in charge of writing the songs. If you want to be in the band, like you can write some stuff, but like has to pass through. Like it was like very much like it needs to be a dictatorship of us two, and we're doing this. And if you want to be in it, you have to be willing to throw your life away to do it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're not, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Do you, so at that point in time, it was you and George kind of overseeing everything. Now, is there a little bit more like creative balance between everything, or is it you and George kind of being like the main? Because it started with you guys. You guys are the only two
Yeah.
originals, right?
Yes, it started with us. And there is still a little bit of that. We're so deep in it at this point, like with Shiv, like the newest member in the band has been in the band for 8 years now.
Okay.
So, that's Chris. And then Shiv and Dan have essentially, Dan's been in the band since 2012. Shiv's been in it since after Sunbather, 2013. So, like, we've written, yeah, like 4 records together at this point and all this kind of stuff. That being said, I would still say, like, I'm kind of the musical director of the
Mhm.
band and I write a lot of the music. A lot of it is just me and Dan. It's me with demos or me and Dan, in the practice space together. And then the other guys flesh their stuff out. Shiv's got kids, so he isn't able to do as much stuff as he used to. And then Chris lives in Boston, but he has a studio at home and he has it. So yeah, I would say like it's definitely a collaborative band at this point. It has been for years, but like we are still kind of I'm like the musical director. George writes all the lyrics and oversees every little bit of art direction. All of that stuff is him. Like how the band looks, the band's name, the lyrics, the titles, all that stuff is him, down to the merch. It's like him working with people. And yeah, and all the music is essentially like me working with the guys. So,
Visually, like, what's like your favorite thing about the band? Like, you guys, people love like your sets and like all like the artwork you were saying. Is there anything that like
mhm.
really sticks out that like you always want it to be perfect, or is it more just music for you?
It's more music for me. I don't really have the the eye for that. Like he is like that kind of guy. He's a photographer. Like if it was up to me, stuff would look probably pretty like stereotypical, you
Yeah.
know. And he's worked with Nick Steinhardt from Touche for years. And they've essentially for every record, like helped make every record look the same. And every time I see it, I'm like, man, this looks great. Like cool. So yeah, it's all George. I'm happy with all of it, but I can take no credit for it.
This new album came out in March, Lonely People with Power. What was kind of like the direction you guys wanted to go with it lyrically and sonically? Like it's very
Mhm.
heavy, obviously, compared to, well, you guys obviously always played heavy music, but compared to like the beginning to now, it's very heavy.
Hmm.
And lyrically, can you kind of give us some stuff on that?
Yeah, lyrically, it's I really like it. Again, George is the guy to talk to about this, but
Yeah.
it's more about like the idea of lonely people with power and about like those it's essentially like, hurt people kind of a thing. And you take that in a micro sense of the family, of the like his own family and his own experiences in his own family with alcoholism and addiction and like what it feels like, what it's like to be a man, and how those ideas of and traits of masculinity are passed down sometimes in less than ideal ways, zooming out to essentially like our current world moment in the world, and like how so much of this has to do with like people feeling spiritually sick, and that gets people into trouble and into situations where there are no off ramps. And yeah, that's what I've gathered from the concepts. It's one of the most lofty ideals that he's told me about. When he told me the name, I was like, damn, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
a good one. Musically, it was essentially like every record is a timestamp of who we are at that time. And so this is kind of like, yeah, a ton of like melodic bands influenced by the second wave of Norwegian black metal. Little hints of like the early US black metal scene. There's like a huge amount of Portishead influence on it too. A little bit of Interpol. And at this point, there's like stuff that just kind of sounds like us to me.
Hmm.
Like where there's parts where I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds like like a grown up version of what we did on this record or this or this. So we're kind of always sort of moving forward with that stuff. But yeah, it was intentionally tried to be made as heavy as it could be, essentially.
If you like look from like the start of Deafheaven compared to now, would you expect your sound to be where it is? Like, did you think he's kind of want to go heavier and heavier each album?
From the start till now, I don't know what I would have thought. Um, yeah, I really don't know. A big part of it is our last record was like pretty much not a metal record. It was like an indie rock record. That was kind of like a post-rocky shoegaze thing. And that I probably could have seen something like that coming in 2010. Um, like just because we were friends with Were and all that stuff at the time. But yeah, I don't know. At the time, in the context of the time, like we were not trying to be the heaviest band. We were almost kind of trying to like rebel against that. There was a whole movement of bands started by former hardcore kids that were trying to do like sort of entombed worship type stuff. A bunch of people heard Nails and how great Nails is, and we're like, I'm gonna try and do that too. And 100 of them popped up overnight, it seemed like, and we were very much like, no, I'm trying to do like what if Thursday had blast beats,
Yeah.
like something like that, or like Deftones, but with black metal vocals or something. And that was kind of more interesting to us at the time. At this point, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's like more interesting to me than post black metal or whatever. There's not a ton of that that interests me these days, but Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I could have foreseen it. No.
You earlier were also saying about how you like were watching YouTube videos and stuff. Do you like kind of like study like the genre and like the history of it? Like, is that how deep you feel like you're into it now?
Yeah, my relationship with the genre and metal as a whole is a weird one. I would consider myself a lifer. Like I've been into it for years and years, and obviously I'm in a band that's into it. But yeah, one of my ex-girlfriends who I'm very good friends with is in LA. She books like Beherit and like does like the cultist of the cult stuff, and I was with her for 5 years, and she got me into a bunch of stuff. But because we were kind of like this epicenter of this like controversy 10 years ago, essentially, like after a while, not back then, but like a couple records after that, like specifically around Ordinary in the reason that Infinite sounds the way it does, it just became tired of like how much more of this stuff do you guys want? How much more pretty guitars and blast beats and delay thing, twinkly. Like I don't know how much more of that I really want to do. And then yeah, we did Infinite and playing Infinite songs live was kind of like, I don't know if I like really like this either. And we kind of missed playing like the old songs. But then part of me was like, it's kind of like some of these are too long and some of these are like this. And so um yeah, all this is to say, yeah, really long-winded answer to your question, but like, yes, I do. I essentially fell back in love with black metal around like 2021, 2022, and rediscovered like all these old bands I had kind of gotten over. And yeah, oftentimes I will, as I did, yeah, 15 years ago, I will like be deep in in the metal archives and try and like, oh, this guy's in this band and this is in this, and oh, and this guy did this, and this is the sketchy guy from this thing, and like, are that, you know what I mean? There's like
Yeah.
all this weird lore and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I do. I am still a nerd about it.
Is there like a certain subgenre or region of like European countries or Asian countries that you particularly like gravitate towards in terms of their sound?
Um, like kind of no. Um, like in terms of like, yeah, in terms of like Black Death or like War Metal or something like that, there is like some like there's a lot of bands from Vancouver are very good. The Blasphemies from there. Finland obviously has like in some insane bands. Beherit is from there. There's so many good bands from Finland. So many of them are sketchy. So like I don't want to just like shout them out.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of Asia, like Sri Lanka and like India has a lot of really good like war metal bands, Tetragram aside, and fuck, there's another one. There's another one that's really good. Oh, I think Genocide Rights is like a really sick band. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, but then a band that I've been listening to a ton recently is this band Catharsis from Germany, and so yeah, or like one of my favorite records from speaking of Catharsis from last year is yeah, Black Curse put out a record, and they're from Denver. So yeah, I kind of just listen to everything from everywhere. But yeah, I do find myself like researching regions at times, like, oh, this is the stuff from here, and this is this, and so yeah.
Do you have like any recommendations for someone that's getting into black metal or just like heavier music in general for like bands that you think would be like good starting points for that? Because I feel like a lot of my viewers are a lot of like hardcore and punkier guys.
Hmm. Hmm.
S-
Yeah, well, it depends on what you like. Because black metal essentially there's like two turning points you can go. You can go start at the first wave, you can start at the second wave. Um, the first wave, whatever you want to call it, would be like the bands influenced by Venom, Bathory, from Sarcophago from Brazil. And that sort of like takes you down the path towards Beherit and Blasphemy and like, yeah, that kind of like old school first wave gnarly guy, like weightlifting stuff,
yeah.
which is fucking awesome. Like that stuff rocks. Bullet belts and like guys that just got like machine gun. Like you can, I heard my friend tell me a joke about, like you can tell if a band is like a first wave band by if they have like if they have sunglasses on and they're in a graveyard in the daytime with like bullet belts and they're like buff, that's a first wave band. Essentially just looking at sarcophago. But yeah, like, or you can go the second way, which is like what a lot of people probably think of as black metal, i.e., Burzum, Dark Throne, Mayhem, Emperor, Immortal, all of like the cold, shrill, like very pale guys in the forest with the corpse paint doing this kind of stuff. All of it's awesome. If I had to tell people to check stuff out as an entryway into black metal, I mean, there's no way to do it. It's such a problematic genre, sadly, that like there's no real way to do it without like you have to be able to separate the art from the artist at some point. Like if you want to be into it.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, big caveat on that, but like sadly, yeah, I would say the one that really got to me was yeah, Burzum Philosophem is like, yeah, dude is literally a neo-Nazi. You don't want to support his shit, but like it is a classic. It is legitimately insanely great record. Less sketchy and like just kind of cool things. The first three Dark Throne records, um, like the first three Dark Throne records are almost kind of just like, what if you took Slayer and like recorded it in a practice space and like made it like a little bit like Slayer with like more Bathory in it. It's really sick. Yeah, Bathory, Blood, Fire, Death is a good one. Mayhem, Death Crush. Again, the guy like kind of a piece of shit. His friend killed himself and he just took a picture, like he got killed by Varga. Everyone knows the lore. It's like not that stuff's not even that really that interesting to me at this point.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to get into the first wave stuff, yeah, like start with Sodom. Start with like the some of the German Teutonic thrash stuff, like Sodom and Creator, early Creator, and then yeah, Sarcophago uh from Brazil, and then yeah, you probably wanted yeah, like Fallen Angel of Doom from Blasphemy, the Harrods drawing down the moon. That's kind of like not entry level though. It's kind of harder to get into that if you like aren't familiar with this the genre at all. But yeah, honestly, dude, just like if you really want to get into it, just like start with I mean post black metal, whatever that black gaze, whatever that stuff is kind of the best bet. Like easier way into it. You can go from there into atmospheric black metal, Panopticon. Yeah, Panopticon, Alcest, Us. Um, and that'll take you. There's a great band called Westering that put out a demo like 15 years ago. Yeah, Weakling, and that'll probably take you to like Leviathan World, which is also kind of sketchy. Whatever, I don't know. There's a million
Yeah,
bands.
yeah,
You'll
yeah.
be fine. Yeah, yeah,
I have two questions, then I'll leave you go.
yeah.
I so you were saying too about how the genre itself can be problematic. One, do you think that with current bands entering the scene of the black metal scene, do you feel like it got better in terms of public image? And then second, did you find that as a barrier as well? Because a lot of people associate that kind of music with not negativity, but gruesome images, like you said, like earlier too, about
Mhm.
like people like hurting themselves and like it's like okay, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be the music is not supposed to be. It's inherently misanthropic and nihilistic, and well, at least at its core.
Hmm.
It is not supposed to be something that's like okay for everybody. That is why I think a lot of these people take it to this end. The other thing that is the big asterisk, I think, that is on black metal, especially Burzum, especially Mayhem, is all these guys are like at the time they're like 24 old, like they are young people trying to like be edgier than their like little incel friends. And like they don't know that this is about to be all over the world 30 years from now. You know what I mean? They're just
Yeah.
trying to be like, oh yeah, well, like you're the oh yeah, well actually I'm a Nazi. Oh yeah, well actually I think that this is well actually I did it. It's like it's literally like game or whatever. Like it's if it was today, it would be whatever you hear when you're playing a 12-year-old on Fortnite or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just this it's the same thing. I don't take a lot of it seriously. Um, so that being said, like yeah, there has also been like historically anti-fascist bands in black metal. One of the first I ever got into was Iskra. It was a band like from Canada, I believe, that was kind of like an anarcho-communist band from Canada that was like played kind of like a black thrash sort of thing. Wolves in the Throne Room, also famously anti-fascist. Panopticon, you probably can't get more anti-fascist than that. Ash Borer, Feld Voices, Yellow Eyes. There's a ton of bands for years that just aren't like this. Most people, at least before like, yeah, 2020 or whatever, not to sound like a boomer, but like, we're just kind of like, yeah, like, this is idiotic, but like
Yeah.
the riffs are good. That was kind of conversations I remember having. Like, yeah, this sucks. The riffs are good. Um, and a lot of those bands are kind of boring. Like a lot of like the a lot of like the very famous for only being um sketchy bands. Like there's a metal YouTuber guy named J Dog who has this great take on this stuff. Who also likes he runs Hell's Headbangers and he puts out a lot of sketchy bands. But his thing is like a lot of these bands, if you got rid of the right wing stuff in it, nobody would listen to this. Like it's all like so many people just want to like the edgy thing, you know. There's the riffs aren't really there. Um, so yeah, that being said, like yeah, there's a million bands out there that are sick that are obviously influenced by other bands that
Hmm.
like you know, if you listen to something like Spectral Wound is another great example of a current black metal band, diehard anti-fascist, doesn't talk about politics, but like they just aren't that you cannot listen to that and you can't and not hear like, yeah, you obviously like some second wave black metal bands that probably if you this guy was in this band, was in this band, was in this band, you're gonna find some sort of dubious association. Yeah, Holder is another one where like, yeah, like it's amazing bands. I don't think there's anything sketchy about this band, but they just are into this music. Um, so yeah, I in terms of it getting better, I guess a lot of the people I knew who were into it when we first started were people in Oakland who were like in anti-fascist left-wing punk houses and stuff like that. So it was rare for me to come across people that were like actually like, no, I am sketchy too.
Yeah.
It was a rare thing to see. In Europe, it's a different story. There was a lot of there's definitely people that are like far right wing and they mean it over there. And you know, now in the US you can see that too, for
Hmm.
sure. But yeah, I would say your average person who's at a show and at a Deafheaven show and wearing like a dissection shirt or something. Also, a guy who killed himself for Satan, who is notoriously not a nice person. I'm gonna go ahead and say I probably give the dissection shirt guy a benefit of the doubt before I before I pass judgment. So it just is what it is, you know. It's like you don't want to hide from it or deny it. Like, yeah, this shit sucks, but also like I like these kind. What if you took Cranberries riffs and you played them through a task cam? That's kind of just what Burzum is, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
yeah, no sweat, no sweat. Yeah, I hope that made sense. And yeah, thank you for working with me with my schedule, man.
Absolutely. Well, guys, there's going to be a ton of shows still coming up. Death Heaven's going to be in the US in October, and going to go to Europe again. And then I'll link everything down below so you can maybe catch a show, buy some merch, and support the band. Till next time, guys.